the standard voice. There we go. And having done that little bit of admin, it's my pleasure to welcome Sarah Mattin from University of Reading, who's with us today to talk about Beyond the Individual, Building Sustainable Networks for Insessional EAP. And I think we've got the presentation as a chance to chat afterwards, I think, Sarah, if I'm not wrong. Yeah.
Yes, hopefully we'll have, we've got a few activities built in, so um, maybe try a few breakout rooms, see how we get on with that. But yes,
Sure. Over to yourself, Sarah. Thank you so much. Yeah.
thank you very much. Thank you, and thank you for inviting me to speak at the SIG. So yes, my name's Sarah Mattin. I'm the Programme Director of the Academic English Programme at the University of Reading, and that's the name we give to our in-sessional provision. And today I'm really going to focus on how we've been working with departments over the last couple of years. So the system that we have for collaborating, for liaising with academic departments. Hopefully it's going to be a bit of an interactive session. I'll be talking about a case study of the work we've done. And then hopefully that's a starting point for us to kind of share experiences from other centres as well, because obviously contextually what people do and how that works in other places is going to be quite different. So let's go. So first of all, just to get us started, thinking about the challenges of collaboration. If it's possible, just in a sentence or two, to think about what are the threats or the challenges around collaboration between your in-sessional team and academic departments. I'm going to ask if you could type in the chat, but don't quite press send yet. So just to give everybody a chance to have a think and do a little bit of typing. We know that the kind of collaboration is the goal, it's the holy grail, it's what we're all working for, but what are some of the challenges? So I'll just give a minute or so for people to do some typing. Okay, just maybe another 30 seconds or so to do your typing. Okay. Righty ho. I'll give us a little bit of a countdown then, and then you can post in the chat and give some reactions to what other people have written as well. So maybe a thumbs up to anything that kind of resonates with you as well. So 3, 2, 1, off we go. Wow, okay, yes, so lots coming through there that I think is probably going to be quite common for a lot of us. So I'll just give another minute or two for people to have a look through, have a chance to have a look through and react to any that seem particularly familiar to you, let's say. So you might need to scroll up and down the chat a little bit. Yeah, so kind of very common themes about workload, pressures around that, the constraints, yes, of time and of change. Mm. Yeah, lots of quite familiar ones here. So I think when we read through these comments, we can see a lot of common themes. People emphasizing as well a lot of positive collaboration going on, which I think we know is really hard to build up, and it's there and it's happening. And then some kind of common challenges being identified. So particularly around time, finding people who are willing and able and also themselves have the time to collaborate with us, official challenges of communication. And also people have mentioned as well changes in staff on both sides that can make it quite challenging to sustain this kind of collaboration. And these are really exactly the things that we were thinking about at Reading, and we were thinking about how can we try and overcome some of these challenges. And I'm going to describe to you the model that we came up with and why we think it's been quite effective in our context. And that's going to be a key thing. It is quite context specific. So thank you for sharing all of those because I think they really sort of chimed with what we were feeling at Reading. This is a quote that I've referred to before from Tibbets and Chapman about really the precarious nature of collaboration across departments in universities. All departments can have quite embedded cultures, all departments have a lot of work to do, a lot of constraints. And often there can be an initial flurry of collaboration around a particular incident or need that is identified, but it can then be quite hard to sustain that over time, particularly as other new challenging situations arise for people on both sides. So, a question that we really had in mind was how can we sort of future proof our collaborative relationships with departments? How can we ensure them a little bit against all the comings and goings of university life? Because the solution that we came up with, or the model that we came up with, is so context specific, it is useful to know a little bit about the context we're working in. So, this is an overview of our in-sessional academic English programme. I'll just give you a quick minute to have a look at that. As you can see, we have quite a considerable ESAP provision, and that's what we're really focusing on today, obviously. And that's delivered almost exclusively now through a suite of non-credit modules that are either embedded at program level or at school level, meeting the needs of a suite of programs, a suite of related programs. We do have alongside that an open sign-up provision of EGAP, but obviously that involves less collaborative work with academic departments, although I'll speak later about other elements of collaboration that have helped us with that. So this is really the context of the provision that we're trying to embed into the university, these non-credit modules that we're running across the schools. The wider context for this, and this is quite important for us, is that we are sitting as in sessional within an academic school called the Global Academy. Some of you might remember us from our former days as the International Study and Language Institute, ISLI. And then alongside that, in the university, there is a study advice service in the library. Now, you can see there how the university is positioning this for students. Academic English programme for international students, and then the study advice service. So, unlike other institutions, Reading has gone down the line of seeing the in-sessional support as something quite focused for international students. So having quite an EAP focus specifically, the kind of ins and outs of that, whether that's the right way to be doing it, that's a slightly separate conversation. That is the way that it is done at Reading. And so we have to work within that. Um, just having a quick look back at the chat so I can respond to a few of those questions. Yep, sorry, the G in the E gap is general. So our E gap provision is provision that we offer, across the university that can be for students of any disciplines. And I can see, some people saying that their institutions are also still, or that their institutions are separating the provision in this way. I know others have gone down quite a different route. It kind of creates its own problems around messaging. It's also quite challenging for me as the in-sessional director to be within an academic school. I think sometimes we see this as the sort of holy grail of EAP, but actually when you're trying to advertise a service across a university, being within an academic school is quite challenging because the system is not set up for schools to promote themselves to other schools. That's not a thing in a university. Services promote themselves and their support to schools and to the student population. Because I'm sitting within an academic school, I'm outside of that, representing in-sessional. So I'm constantly having to, whenever people are going through their list of support services for students, remind them, oh, and us, and in-sessional. I understand as well that also sometimes being within professional services doesn't, doesn't solve the problem either. And there's a constant need to remind people of our existence. But so that's the context we're sitting in. So we had embedded provision for a number of years at Reading. That's an aspect of the provision that had been built up over many years. We had what we called in-sessional coordinators who were working with schools, who were liaising with schools. But we felt that the system was quite loose, let's say, that it was quite difficult to quantify to senior management exactly what this liaison work consisted of, why it was so important. So we, with the support of the head of school at that time, we moved towards this academic language and literacy liaison model, which basically uses a business partner model. So every single department, every single school now at the University of Reading has an academic language and literacy liaison from within our in-sessional team. So if you scan the QR code, you can see that particular web page and you can see the schools listed and our colleagues who are their liaison. We quite recently revamped the web pages so that they're more school facing, so that the schools can go and find themselves and see who their liaison is. A key point about this model is that it replicates a model that many other services use at the university. So this is the model study advice use. This is the model the librarians use, and also services like HR, IT support. So it was a very familiar model for the schools to understand in terms of, right, this is your business partner, this is your liaison attached to your school. And it made that link between one school and another suddenly start to become a little bit more tangible.